My son's wife kicked me out of the house and threw my clothes out the window. I'm not going to support a sick old woman, she said. That same day, I called the bank and canceled the mortgage payment. Subscribe to the channel for more stories like this, and comment the city you're watching from. I'm Ruth, and at 65 years old, I never imagined I'd be standing on a sidewalk watching my own clothes rain down from a second-story window like confetti at the world's cruelest parade. Get out, you old bag. Violet's voice cut through the morning air as my favorite blue cardigan hit the pavement. I'm not going to support a sick old woman anymore. My hands trembled as I watched my belongings scatter across the lawn I had paid to maintain for the past 8 years. The irony wasn't lost on me. This house, this beautiful two-story colonial with its white picket fence and rose bushes, belonged to me in every way that mattered. Every mortgage payment of $1,700 that came out of my Social Security and pension check. Every utility bill. Every repair. Mrs. Henderson from next door peeked through her curtains, and I felt the familiar burn of shame creep up my neck. How had I become this woman? How had I allowed myself to be reduced to a spectacle for the neighbors? Violet, please. I called up to the window where my daughter-in-law stood with her arms crossed, her blonde hair perfectly styled despite the early hour. Let's talk about this. Gregory will be home from work soon. She laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Gregory knows exactly how I feel about you. He's tired of pretending to. We both are. The words hit me harder than any physical blow. Gregory, my only son, the boy I had raised alone after his father died when he was just 12. The child I had worked double shifts to put through college. The man I had handed my entire life savings to when he needed a down payment for this very house. I bent down to pick up my scattered photographs, pictures of Gregory's childhood, his wedding day, moments I had treasured. One photo showed him hugging me at his graduation, his smile bright and genuine. That man seemed like a stranger now. You have 1 hour to get your pathetic belongings off my property, Violet continued, her voice dripping with venom. After that, I'm calling the police. My property. The words echoed in my mind as I gathered my things with shaking hands. I had been living in my own house as a guest, treated like an unwelcome burden while paying for the privilege of being humiliated. As I stuffed my clothes into the old suitcase I found among the pile, my phone rang. Gregory's name flashed on the screen. Mom, what's going on? Violet said there was some kind of emergency. I could hear the genuine concern in his voice, and for a moment hope flickered in my chest. Maybe he didn't know. Maybe this was all Violet's doing. Gregory, your wife threw me out of the house. She threw my clothes out the window. Silence stretched between us like a chasm. When he finally spoke, his voice was different. Colder. Mom, we talked about this. You can't keep living with us forever. You're getting older, and Violet thinks it might be better if you found somewhere more suitable. More suitable. As if I were a piece of furniture that no longer matched the decor. But son, I pay for this house. The mortgage, the bills, everything comes from my account. Another pause. That was your choice, Mom. We never asked you to do that. The lie sat between us like a poisonous snake. I remembered every conversation, every plea for help, every time he had called me in tears about money troubles. I remembered co-signing the loan, putting my credit on the line, transferring my savings to make their dreams possible. After hanging up, I sat on the curb with my suitcase beside me, watching Violet close the window with satisfaction. She had won. Or so she thought. I pulled out my phone and dialed the number I knew by heart. The automated system of First National Bank greeted me with its cheerful electronic voice. Thank you for calling First National. How can we help you today? I need to speak to someone about canceling automatic payments, I said, my voice steady for the first time all morning. My finger hovered over the keypad as I thought about the 8 years of payments, the financial sacrifice, the gratitude I had expected but never received. Then I thought about Violet's cruel laughter, Gregory's cold dismissal, and the way they both looked at me like I was nothing more than an inconvenience. I pressed the buttons to access my account, and when the representative came on the line, I spoke with a clarity that surprised even me. I want to cancel the automatic mortgage payment for 1742 Maple Street. Effective immediately. Are you sure about this, Mrs. Patterson? This will affect the account holder's credit rating. I looked up at the house where Violet was probably already celebrating her victory, planning how to redecorate my bedroom. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Sitting in the cramped motel room that night, I couldn't stop my hands from shaking as I went through the box of documents I had managed to grab before Violet's tantrum. The water-stained ceiling above me seemed to mock the pristine home I had been paying for all these years. It was while sorting through old bank statements that I found it. A folder I had forgotten about, hidden behind Gregory's college transcripts. Inside were printouts of emails I had discovered on Gregory's laptop months ago, when he asked me to help him with some computer problems. I should have confronted him then. Instead, I had printed them out and hidden them away, too afraid to face the truth. The first email was from Violet to her sister Miranda, dated just 6 months after I moved in with them. Miranda, I swear this woman is going to drive me insane. She acts like she owns the place just because she pays the bills. Gregory keeps saying we need her money, but I'm so tired of pretending to care about her boring stories and health problems. I can't wait until we can afford this place on our own and ship her off somewhere. My stomach clenched as I read on. The worst part is how she looks at Gregory like he's still 12 years old. It's creepy. And she has this way of guilt-tripping him into spending time with her. Oh Gregory, we used to be so close. Remember when it was just you and me? Pathetic. I set the paper down, my vision blurring. This was written while I was making her breakfast every morning, while I was doing her laundry, while I was biting my tongue every time she made snide comments about my old-fashioned ways. The next email was even worse. Gregory's response to his wife. I know, babe. Sometimes I wish Dad hadn't died so young. Maybe she wouldn't be so clingy. She's always been like this though, even when I was a kid. Everything had to be about our special bond. I love her, but you're right about the guilt trips. And honestly, the money thing is getting embarrassing. My coworkers don't know my mom pays our mortgage. What kind of man does that make me? The betrayal cut deeper than I expected. I remembered the night his father died. How 7-year-old Gregory had crawled into my bed crying. How I had promised him I would never leave him alone. I had kept that promise perhaps too well. But the final email in the folder made my blood run cold. It was from Violet to someone named Dr. Patricia Hendricks at Sunset Manor Assisted Living. Dr. Hendricks, thank you for the tour last week. As I mentioned, we're looking for placement for my mother-in-law within the next year. She's 65, generally healthy but showing signs of what we believe might be early cognitive decline. Memory issues, confusion about finances, that sort of thing. We're particularly interested in your Medicaid wing, as her resources are limited. Could you send me information about the admission process? It would be best if this remained confidential for now, as she can be quite resistant to change. I read it 3 times before the words sank in. Cognitive decline. Memory issues. Limited resources. They were planning to have me declared incompetent and stuck in a state-funded nursing home, while they kept the house I had paid for. The cruel genius of it made me nauseous. Violet had been documenting every time I forgot where I put my keys, every time I had trouble with my smartphone, every moment of normal aging confusion. She was building a case against me. I pulled out my phone and called Sunset Manor. Sunset Manor, this is Janet. Yes, I'm calling about some inquiries that were made about Ruth Patterson. I believe someone contacted Dr. Hendricks about possible placement. Oh yes, let me check our files. Are you Mrs. Patterson? I am. Well, your daughter-in-law was very thorough in her concerns about your declining condition. She seemed quite worried about your ability to manage your finances independently. Dr. Hendricks has you tentatively scheduled for an evaluation next month. The room spun around me. Next month. They had been planning this while I cooked their dinners, while I helped with their laundry, while I handed over my pension check month after month. What exactly did she tell you about my condition? Well, she mentioned that you've been having trouble remembering things, some confusion about money, and that you've been making poor financial decisions. She was very concerned about your safety living independently. Poor financial decisions. Like paying their mortgage while they plan to have me committed. I see. And what happens during this evaluation? Dr. Hendricks would assess your cognitive function and daily living capabilities. If she determines you need supervised care, we can usually place you within a week or 2. After I hung up, I sat staring at the evidence spread across the motel bed. 8 years of mortgage payments. 8 years of believing I was helping my family. 8 years of being the fool who thought love and money were the same thing. My phone buzzed with a text from Gregory. Mom, Violet told me what happened. Maybe this is for the best. You've been acting a little confused lately. We think you need more help than we can give. Confused. The word they plan to use to steal my independence, my dignity, and my home. I looked at the mortgage payment confirmation on my banking app. In 3 days, the payment would be due, and for the first time in 8 years, First National Bank would find Gregory's account empty. They wanted to play games with my mind, my memory, my future. But there was nothing confused about what I was going to do next. Chapter 3: The Resistance. The call came at exactly 9:15 in the morning, 3 days after I had canceled the mortgage payment. I was sitting in the motel's small kitchenette, sipping coffee that tasted like burnt cardboard, when Gregory's name flashed on my phone screen. Mom, we need to talk. Now. His voice had lost all pretense of warmth. This wasn't my son calling. This was a stranger who shared his face. I'm listening, Gregory. The bank called. They said our mortgage payment was rejected. What did you do? I took a slow sip of my terrible coffee, savoring the moment. I stopped paying for a house where I'm not welcome. You can't do that. This is our home. Your home, I corrected, as Violet made very clear when she threw my belongings out the window. The silence stretched between us, and I could almost hear him scrambling for the right words, the perfect manipulation to get me back in line. Look, Mom, Violet was upset. She's been under a lot of stress lately with her job, and we didn't mean for things to get so heated. Stress. As if working part-time at a boutique while I paid all the bills was somehow overwhelming. Gregory, I found the emails. Another pause, longer this time. What emails? The ones about shipping me off to Sunset Manor. The ones about my supposed cognitive decline. The evaluation scheduled for next month that I knew nothing about. I heard him intake sharply, and then Violet's voice in the background, urgent and angry, though I couldn't make out the words. Mom, those were just... We were exploring options. You're getting older, and we thought you might be happier somewhere with people your own age. People my age who've been declared incompetent and had their assets seized by their loving families? It's not like that. Then what is it like, Gregory? Explain to me how planning to have me committed while I pay your bills is an act of love. Violet's voice grew louder in the background, and suddenly she was on the phone. Ruth, you listen to me very carefully. Her voice had dropped the pretense of sweetness entirely. You will reinstate that mortgage payment today, or we will take legal action against you. I almost laughed. Legal action for what? Elder abuse. You're clearly not competent to make financial decisions anymore. Gregory has been trying to protect you, but your erratic behavior is getting dangerous. The audacity was breathtaking. They were going to claim I was abusing myself by refusing to hand over my money. Violet, I want you to understand something very clearly. I am 65 years old, not 95. I have a pension, Social Security, and savings that I earned through 43 years of work. I am not confused, not incompetent, and not obligated to support two adults who are perfectly capable of supporting themselves. You ungrateful witch, she hissed. After everything we've done for you, what exactly have you done for me? I paid rent to live in a house I owned the mortgage on. I bought groceries to cook meals you complained about. I did laundry for people who treated me like hired help. What kindness am I supposed to be grateful for? Gregory took the phone back. Mom, please. Let's just meet and talk this through. Come back home. Home. The word felt foreign now. That house was never my home, Gregory. It was a place where I was tolerated in exchange for my bank account. That's not true. Then prove it. Show me one email, one text message, one conversation where either of you expressed genuine affection for me, rather than resentment about having to pretend to care. Silence. The mortgage payment stands canceled, I continued. If you want to keep the house, you'll need to figure out how to pay for it yourselves. We can't afford $1,700 a month. Violet shrieked in the background. Then perhaps you shouldn't have bitten the hand that fed you. I hung up and immediately turned off my phone. Within minutes, the motel's landline rang. Then it rang again. And again. By afternoon, my sister Carol was at my door. Carol, who lived 4 hours away and hadn't visited me once in the 8 years I lived with Gregory and Violet. Ruth, what are you doing? Gregory called me in tears. He said you've lost your mind. I let her in and poured her coffee from the same bitter pot. She looked around the small room with poorly disguised disgust. This is where you're living now? Ruth, you need to go home and fix this. This isn't about being stubborn, Carol. They were planning to have me declared incompetent and institutionalized. Gregory would never do that. I showed her the emails. Watched her face change as she read Violet's words about shipping me off, Gregory's embarrassment about my financial support, the correspondence with Sunset Manor. Oh, Ruth. Her voice softened. I had no idea. They're very good at hiding their true feelings. 8 years of practice. Carol set down the papers with shaking hands. But the house payments are no longer my responsibility. If Gregory wants to be a homeowner, he can figure out how to pay for it like every other adult. But they can't afford it without you. That sounds like a problem they should have considered before planning my future behind my back. Carol stayed for 2 hours, alternating between outrage on my behalf and worry about Gregory's situation. When she left, she hugged me tighter than she had since we were children. You're doing the right thing, Ruth. I'm proud of you. That evening, Gregory showed up at my motel room door. He looked haggard, his hair uncombed, his clothes wrinkled. This was the little boy who used to climb into my lap when he was scared, and my heart ached despite everything. Mom, please. I'm begging you. To do what, Gregory? To come home. To give us another chance. And the evaluation at Sunset Manor? He looked down at his shoes. That was Violet's idea. I thought maybe you really were getting confused. Because it was easier to believe I was losing my mind than to admit you were stealing from me. We weren't stealing. You offered to help. I offered to help temporarily. I didn't offer to be your personal bank while you planned my imprisonment. He started crying then, and I saw the 7-year-old boy who had lost his father. But I also saw the 35-year-old man who had let his wife plan my destruction while I paid his bills. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I opened the door wider. Sorry enough to end your marriage to a woman who wanted to have me committed? He stopped crying. The silence told me everything I needed to know. I thought so. Goodbye, Gregory. I closed the door and listened to him sob on the other side. My heart was breaking, but for the first time in 8 years it was breaking for the right reasons. That night, alone in my motel room with the sound of rain pattering against the window, I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened the old photo albums I had rescued from Violet's purge, and I really looked at them. The first album was from Gregory's childhood. Page after page of birthday parties, Christmas mornings, school plays. In every single photo I was there. His father, Michael, appeared in maybe a quarter of them. He was always working, always traveling, always too busy for the mundane moments of raising a child. But I was in every picture. Sometimes tired, often still in my work uniform from the diner, but always there. Always smiling at my boy. I found a photo from Gregory's 8th birthday and studied it carefully. Michael had been out of town on business, so it was just Gregory and me at Chuck E. Cheese. Gregory was beaming, chocolate cake smeared across his cheek, his small hand reaching for mine across the table. I was looking at him with such pure love, such devotion. When had that look stopped being returned? I flipped forward and found my answer in the photos from Gregory's teenage years. The shift was subtle but unmistakable. By 15, he was rolling his eyes in family photos. By 16, he was barely tolerating my presence at his events. By 17, I was taking pictures of him with his friends from a distance, no longer welcome in the frame. I remembered those years differently. I had told myself he was just being a normal teenager, asserting his independence. I had made excuses for his increasing coldness, his growing resentment of my presence. But looking at these photos with clear eyes, I could see the truth I had refused to acknowledge. Gregory had learned to be ashamed of me long before Violet came along. The realization hit me like a physical blow. I flipped through more pages looking for evidence I was wrong, but it was all there. The gradual distancing. The way he stopped bringing friends home. The excuses he made to avoid spending time with me. I found a letter he had written me when he was 19 away at college. I had treasured it for 16 years, but now I read it with new understanding. Dear Mom, thank you for the care package and the money for books. I know you're working extra shifts to help me out and I appreciate it. College is going great. I've made lots of friends and my professors say I have real potential. I'll be home for Christmas, but I might have to leave early because some of my fraternity brothers invited me to go skiing in Colorado. I hope you understand. Love, Gregory. At the time I had focused on the love, Gregory, and the gratitude for my sacrifices. Now I saw what I had missed, the casual mention of leaving early, the implication that his college friends were more important than spending time with the mother who was working double shifts to pay his tuition. Even then, I was more valuable for what I could provide than for who I was. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through text messages from the past few years, looking for patterns I had ignored. Most of our communication was about money. Gregory asking for help with utilities, car repairs, medical bills for Violet. My responses were always immediate and generous. His thank yous were brief and dutiful, but it was the timing that really hurt. He would call on my birthday, Christmas, Mother's Day, but also whenever he needed money. The pattern was so obvious I couldn't believe I had missed it. I found a voicemail from last Mother's Day and played it back. Hey Mom. Just wanted to wish you a happy Mother's Day. You've always been there for me, and I appreciate everything you do. Violet made your favorite lemon cake. Oh, and I hate to ask, but the air conditioning unit is making weird noises and the repair guy said it might need to be replaced. I know you just helped us with the roof repairs, but if you could help us out again, we'd really appreciate it. Love you. Even his Mother's Day message was a setup for asking for money. I sat back against the uncomfortable motel pillows and forced myself to confront the most painful truth of all. This hadn't started with Violet. She had simply given Gregory permission to treat me the way he had wanted to treat me for years. My mind drifted back to Michael's funeral. Gregory was 12, scared and clinging to me. The grief counselor had warned me about making him my whole world, about not letting my own loss turn him into a substitute husband or best friend. I hadn't listened. I had poured all my love, all my energy, all my identity into being Gregory's mother. I had worked extra shifts to buy him things his friends had. I had saved every penny for his college fund while wearing second-hand clothes. I had turned down dates because I didn't want Gregory to feel replaced. And somewhere along the way, Gregory had learned that my love came with sacrifice, that I would always choose his needs over my own, that my job in life was to give and his job was to take. When he brought Violet home, I had been thrilled. Finally, someone else to love my son the way I did. I had welcomed her with open arms, ignored the little cruelties, the subtle ways she undermined me. I had told myself it was natural for a wife to want her husband's primary loyalty. But Violet had seen something I hadn't. She had seen that Gregory was already primed to view me as a resource rather than a person. She had simply helped him articulate what he already felt. My phone buzzed with a text from my nephew David, Carol's son. Aunt Ruth, Mom told me what happened. I'm so sorry. If you need anything, please let me know. David. I barely knew him as an adult, but he was reaching out with genuine concern. No strings attached, no hidden agenda. When was the last time Gregory had contacted me without wanting something? I couldn't remember. I closed the photo albums and put them away. Tomorrow I would start looking for an apartment. Not because I was running away, but because I was finally running towards something, a life where I mattered for who I was, not what I could provide. The woman in those early photos, the one who had worked so hard and loved so deeply, deserved better than to be discarded when she was no longer useful. She deserved to spend her remaining years surrounded by people who valued her presence, not her bank account. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something that wasn't anger or hurt or betrayal. I felt hope. 6 weeks after I canceled the mortgage payment, I was settling into my new one-bedroom apartment when Carol called with news that should have made me feel vindicated. Instead, it just made me sad. Ruth, you need to know what's happening with Gregory and Violet. I was unpacking my grandmother's china, pieces I had thought were lost forever among Violet's belongings. Apparently, she had thrown them in a box marked Ruth's junk, without realizing their value. I'm listening. The foreclosure notice went up yesterday. They have 30 days to bring the mortgage current or they lose the house. I set down the delicate teacup I was holding. 30 days. That meant they had burned through whatever savings they had, maxed out credit cards, probably borrowed from anyone who would lend to them. Have they tried to get a loan? Gregory applied everywhere. But without your income to guarantee the payments, no bank will touch them. Violet's part-time job and Gregory's salary as a maintenance supervisor don't come close to covering $1,700 a month. I had known this would happen. I had run the numbers in my head dozens of times. They couldn't afford the house without me, and they had known it when they decided to discard me anyway. There's more, Carol continued. Violet's been telling people around town that you've lost your mind. She's claiming you're having some kind of breakdown and that's why you stopped helping them. The manipulation never ended. Even facing homelessness, Violet was still trying to control the narrative. What's Gregory saying? That's the thing, Ruth. He's not saying much of anything. Mrs. Henderson told me she saw him sitting in his car in the driveway for hours last night, just staring at the house. She said he looked like he'd been crying. I felt a familiar tug in my chest, the old instinct to protect my child from pain. But I forced myself to remember the emails, the planned evaluation, the years of being treated like a burden while I paid their bills. They made their choice, Carol. I know. I'm not asking you to go back. I just thought you should know. After we hung up, I couldn't concentrate on unpacking. I kept thinking about Gregory sitting in that car, realizing what he was about to lose. Not just the house but his entire lifestyle. The two-car garage, the finished basement where he watched football with his friends, the backyard where he grilled steaks every weekend. All of it paid for by the woman he had planned to have committed. 3 days later, Gregory called me himself. I almost didn't answer, but something in me needed to hear what he would say. Mom. His voice was hoarse, defeated. We got the final notice today. I heard. Is there any way we can work something out? I know we messed up, but losing the house. Gregory, do you remember what you said when I told you Violet threw me out? You said it was for the best. You said I was acting confused. I was scared, Mom. Violet said you were having episodes, forgetting things. I thought maybe you really needed help. So you decided to let her throw me out like garbage rather than talk to me about your concerns? Silence stretched between us. I'm sorry, he whispered. I know sorry doesn't fix anything, but I am sorry. What are you sorry for, Gregory? Be specific. For not standing up for you. For letting Violet treat you badly. For not appreciating everything you did for us. And for planning to have me declared incompetent and institutionalized? Another long pause. That was Violet's idea. I never would have gone through with it. But you didn't stop it either. You let her make that appointment. You let her tell them I was declining mentally. You were willing to let it happen as long as you didn't have to be the one making the call. What do you want me to say, Mom? That I'm a terrible son? Fine. I'm a terrible son. But I'm about to lose everything. There it was. Even now, his apology was really just a prelude to asking for help. You're not losing everything, Gregory. You're losing things. Material possessions. A house, cars, maybe some furniture. But you still have your health, your job, your marriage. You still have your life ahead of you. But where are we going to live? I lived in that motel for 3 weeks while I looked for this apartment. You'll figure it out. Mom, please. I'll do anything. I'll make Violet apologize. I'll go to counseling. Whatever you want. I don't want Violet's apology. I don't want your promises. I want you to take responsibility for your choices and stop expecting other people to fix the consequences. The desperation in his voice was painful to hear. So that's it? You're just going to let us lose our home? Gregory, I want you to listen to me very carefully. That house was never your home. It was my investment in what I thought was our relationship. But there was no relationship. There was just you taking and me giving until I had nothing left to give but my freedom. That's not true. Then tell me about the last conversation we had that wasn't about money. Tell me about the last time you called just to see how I was doing. Tell me about one time in the past 5 years when you chose my company over something else you wanted to do. The silence told me he was trying to think of something and coming up empty. I loved you, Gregory. I loved you so much that I gave you everything I had and everything I was. And you threw it away for a woman who saw me as an obstacle to be removed. Mom. I hope you find a way to be happy. I really do. But it won't be at my expense anymore. I hung up and turned off my phone. Outside my new apartment window, I could see a small garden courtyard where some of the other residents were tending to vegetables. Mrs. Kim from next door had invited me to join their gardening club. She didn't know about my pension or my savings account. She just knew I seemed lonely and thought I might enjoy growing tomatoes. 2 weeks later, Carol called to tell me Gregory and Violet had moved into a cramped 2-bedroom apartment across town. Violet had to get a second job waitressing at night. Gregory was working overtime whenever he could get it. They were learning what I had known all along. That life required work, sacrifice, and responsibility. That homes had to be earned, not given. I felt no satisfaction in their struggle, but I felt no guilt either. For the first time in 8 years, I was exactly where I belonged. 1 year later, I was kneeling in the community garden, my hands deep in the rich soil, when Mrs. Kim nudged my shoulder and pointed toward the parking lot. "Ruth, isn't that your son?" I looked up to see Gregory standing by the garden gate, thinner than I remembered, his work clothes clean but worn. He had been standing there for several minutes, just watching me tend to my tomato plants. "Yes," I said simply, continuing to work. "That's Gregory." Mrs. Kim, bless her, understood immediately. "Would you like me to stay?" "No, it's fine. He won't cause trouble." Gregory approached slowly, like someone trying not to spook a wild animal. The other gardeners glanced over curiously but continued their work, giving us the illusion of privacy. "Hi, Mom." I sat back on my heels and really looked at him. The softness was gone from his face, replaced by the lean tiredness of someone who had learned what real work felt like. His hands, which had been smooth when I was paying his bills, were now calloused and stained. "Hello, Gregory. Your garden looks nice." "Thank you. Mrs. Chun taught me about composting, and Mr. Rodriguez showed me how to stake the tomatoes properly. It's amazing what you can learn when you have time to focus on something besides other people's problems." He winced slightly at that. "Can we talk?" I stood up, brushing dirt from my gardening gloves. "We are talking. I mean, really talk. Please." I gestured to a bench near the garden's edge. We sat with careful space between us like polite strangers. "How have you been?" he asked. "Happy," I said, and meant it. "How are Violet and the apartment?" "Violet and I are divorced. Have been for 6 months now." This surprised me, though I tried not to show it. "I'm sorry to hear that." "Are you?" I considered his question seriously. "I'm sorry you're in pain." "I'm not sorry she's out of your life." Gregory nodded slowly. "She left when the money ran out. When she realized I couldn't give her the lifestyle she wanted without you. She said I was weak for not being able to control my own mother. And what do you think? I think she was right. I was weak, just not in the way she meant." We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching Mrs. Kim harvest her peppers. "I've been going to counseling," Gregory said eventually. "Good. The therapist asked me to write you a letter, to really think about what I wanted to say. I wrote 17 different versions. Did you bring it with you?" "No, because I realized that every version was still really about what I wanted from you. Forgiveness or understanding or another chance. And I finally understood that's not what this is about." I looked at him with genuine curiosity. This was not the conversation I had expected. "What is it about then?" "It's about the fact that you deserve better than what I gave you. It's about the fact that you spent 35 years putting me first, and I spent the last 8 years making you feel like a burden for it." My throat tightened unexpectedly. This was the acknowledgement I had needed to hear, though I hadn't realized it until now. "Gregory, I'm not here to ask for anything, Mom. I'm here to tell you that I finally understand what I lost. Not the house, not the money. I lost the only person who ever loved me unconditionally. And I lost her because I took that love for granted." Tears I hadn't expected were threatening to fall. "You didn't lose me because you took my love for granted. You lost me because you let someone convince you I didn't deserve basic respect. You're right. And I'm sorry. Not because I want something from you, but because you deserve to hear it." We sat quietly for a long time. Around us, the garden hummed with life. Bees moved between the flowers, and somewhere a wind chime tinkled gently in the breeze. "What happens now?" Gregory asked finally. "I don't know. I'm still figuring out who I am when I'm not taking care of someone else. Are you? Would you be open to maybe having coffee sometime? Not to talk about the past, just to, I don't know, get to know each other again." I studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation or hidden agenda. I saw only exhaustion and genuine regret. Maybe, I said. But it would have to be different this time. Different how? I'm not your mother who will fix everything anymore. I'm not your financial safety net. I'm not the person you call when you need something. If we're going to have a relationship, it has to be because you actually enjoy my company. I understand. And it has to be on my terms. My schedule, my comfort level. If I say no to something, the answer is no. If I need space, you give it to me. Okay. And Gregory? I'm happy now. Really happy. I have friends here, activities I enjoy, a life that belongs to me. I won't give that up to go back to the way things were. I wouldn't ask you to. I stood up, needing to end this conversation before my emotions overwhelmed my judgment. I need time to think about it. Of course. Gregory stood too, hesitating for a moment like he wanted to hug me. But he seemed to understand that even that small gesture needed to be earned. Thank you for talking to me. You're welcome. I watched him walk away, noting that he didn't look back or linger hopefully by his car. That small show of respect for my boundaries meant more than all his apologies. That evening I sat on my small balcony with a cup of tea, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. My phone rang. Mrs. Kim, asking if I wanted to join her and some of the other ladies for dinner at the new Thai restaurant. I'd love to, I said, and I meant it. As I got ready to go out with my friends, people who valued my company rather than my bank account, I caught sight of myself in the mirror. The woman looking back at me was older than the one who had been thrown out of her son's house a year ago, but she was also stronger, more confident, free. I had spent 64 years learning to give love. At 65, I was finally learning to receive it. And that, I realized, was the beginning of everything.